future.
There are no people.
There are no people in the future.
No people at all.
There are no people in the future.
Where did all my people go?
There are no people in the future.
Let me try my people call. Where are all my people?
Hey, it's Friday,
I guess I'll
July 21st, 2023. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Friday Politics Roundup. This is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. Each week I break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. You can help support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress for all the details. And you can help out the show by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for this show, and hit that notification bell so you know every time that we go live. And if you're one of our awesome podcast listeners, make sure to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen on, and leave a comment to let other folks know why you like the show. Little things like this help other people find the show. And we cannot let Paul Martino, Moms for Liberty, and their oligarch friends buy our schools and push extremist politics in our community. Raging Chicken has teamed up with Levelfield to launch a truly rooted community PAC to invest in organizing, supporting local and statewide progressive candidates, and unmasking the toxic organizations injecting our communities with right-wing extremism. We're putting small dollar donations to work to beat back the power of big money. You get more information and drop your donation at ragingchicken.levelfield.net. Well, on this week's show, let's see if I can fix this. Well, I'll get that in a second. This week's show, SAG-AFTRA, the Writers Guild of America, and the Alliance of Motion Pictures Television Producers, or AMPTP, they continue their strikes as Hollywood and streaming service face a reckoning. And this is an amazing strike that is just incredible. And Representative Scott Fitzgerald of Wisconsin just introduced new legislation to attack the National Education Association's charter in order to gut teacher union power. This is making it onto the show today, thanks indeed to Amy. And we got another one for you, Amy, too, thanks to the tips that you're giving us. And Chad Connelly, a Christian nationalist operative and former faith outreach director for the Republican National Committee, he runs his voter mobilization organization called Faith Wins. Well, turns out Connelly has organized dozens of secret meetings between top Republican candidates and right-wing pastors, giving pastors the opportunity to grill candidates on political issues and pray over them. Gotta love that. We saw last week, beginning of the week, a train derailed in Whitemarsh Township in Montgomery County. And, well, people got lucky. We all got lucky. Turns out most of the cars were carrying liquified petroleum gas, or LPG, and toxic chemicals that apparently mostly are used in dry cleaning and so on. That could very much have been another bomb train, and this is now raising, once again, questions about rail safety in the country. And down the street. And are you ready for the announcement? This is another one, the hat tip to Amy goes to this one. Are you ready for the launch of a nationwide effort to destroy teachers' unions? Well, let me introduce you to the first annual Teachers Freedom Summit. Yep, it's what all the right-wing education privateers and religious zealots have been drooling over. Here you go. I just want to say, this is like one of these, like, remember this moments? You remember when I was saying it, we're going to see this, right? The next move after what we saw in the Bucks County, after Paul Martino was up there warning them that, basically about the teachers' unions, that about contracts, upcoming contracts, that this is going to be the next attack. We get all the culture war stuff, and now we're going to get the attacks on the unions. It's crazy. I should also say the Penridge teachers, I should talk about that. The Penridge teachers union they're also without a contract. And things are kind of heating up there, especially with, you've got administrators leaving, you've got like unprecedented numbers of teachers leaving, you've got 30%, teachers are paid 30% below teachers in the surrounding districts. All that is kind of like, and you put that into the the context of the crazy that's been going on here with the Red Wizards of Thay taking over our teachers, our board of education. There's not Board of Education, our school district. We've got some crazy stuff going on. We'll talk about that a little bit too. Well, listen, for more PA Progressive Talk, tune into the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern. Check out his YouTube channel, Twitter, and Facebook. And you basically just head on over to ricksmithshow.com for the latest across all his platforms. And you also got to check out the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast. The amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind this podcast rock the house. And they know where the bodies are buried. Hey, make sure to follow them on Twitter at The Night Caucus. That's at The Night Caucus on Twitter. And subscribe to their podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. If you haven't heard, The Signal is a new podcast by the Bucks County Beacon. The Signal is hosted by the Beacon's editor-in-chief, Cyril Nicolaico, and produced by yours truly. Twice a month, The Signal will shine a light on right-wing extremist currents streaming through Bucks County and beyond. Cyril invites guests who can provide insight, analysis, and organizing solutions so that we can steer the community toward calmer, saner, progressive roots. Check out the podcast at thebuckscountybeacon.podbean.com or pick it up wherever you get your podcast. And for all you gamers out there, the Game In, that's with two N's, the Game In is a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show, and they've got everything from retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games for all platforms, collectibles, action figures, Funko Pops, walls of Funko Pops, and kids get discounts so they get A's during the school year. Fantastic. I know it's the summertime now, but something to look forward to the fall. Check them out on their Facebook page and follow them on Twitter at TheGameIn, that's with two N's. Got a question about a game, looking for something hard to get, shoot them a message or drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. Shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at @SongAdayMan. That's at @SongAdayMan on Twitter. And this coming Monday on Out to Coop Live, I'm totally stoked for this one. Monday, July 24th at 7 p.m., I welcome Alexandra Bradbury to the show. Al is the editor of Labor Notes, and we'll be talking about her new piece, UPS Teamsters Just Practicing, written with Luis Feliz Leon. And that is about the possibility of the UPS strike and the decades-long work of rebuilding the Teamsters and the meaning for the labor movement and working people more broadly. It's a great piece, gets into some of the history that has led up to this. So again, getting us away from the idea that strikes just kind of happen randomly, right? No, this gets into some of the organizing background and so on. And of course, the folks at Labor Notes are freaking awesome. They're always awesome. Well, Al Bradbury joined the staff of Labor Notes back in 2012 after working with hospital workers as a researcher and organizer for the Service Employees Local 49 in Oregon. She edits Labor Notes, she covers postal workers and Teamsters, and she's also occasional singer-songwriter. How about that? Maybe we'll ask her about that on Monday too as well. And she's based out of Seattle. She's fantastic. I had the opportunity to go to one of the trainings that she ran when she was here in Philadelphia. I've written a piece for Labor Notes in the past and stuff, and I cannot wait to dig into what's going on with this, the potential of a Teamster strike against UPS. It's going to be something. And look, if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. Support Pull No Punch, homegrown progressive media today. Become a patron of Raising Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/RCPress. We're here for the fight, and we need you. Become a patron for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement and the movement in the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/RCPress today. Well, thank you all for for tuning in today. Let me just give you a little bit. I have little to no understanding of how I am sounding to people right now. I'm going to try to turn up this export volume a little bit. I'm super sorry about this. I woke up this morning, had my breakfast, did all the things you do in the morning. Got ready to come down here, and my whole mixer and soundboard is fried. Oh, great. Thank you, Amy. But my whole mixer and stuff is fried. So instead of just prepping for the show this morning, which was my intention, I actually had to do a little bit of a workaround, had to pull out an old mic to make sure this still works, and tweak the setups in my broadcast software in OBS a bit as it get to come out. And what threw me right when we started the show, I mean, for those of you who are listening on the podcast, you won't kind of get some of this, but you won't hear it because I'm going to cut this out for the podcast version. For those folks who were here on YouTube, you saw me kind of staring off in the distance for a while, and from what I understand, the music was playing. But I actually had it set up. I tested it before we went live, and had the music going. And when I went to go live and put it on, I couldn't hear the music. So I was watching my levels, and turns out the music was playing. And Amy, thank you for confirming that. And but it was just weird. And then you start to realize, you do this long enough, and when there's certain kind of music cues and things where you kind of start talking, and helps build a rhythm for the beginning of the show. And I couldn't hear anything, so I said, okay, we're just going to shut the music off, and then I'm just going to start cold with no music. So that's the weirdness at the beginning of the show. Have no idea what happened. It's a new mixer. It's called a Rodecaster Pro. It's a phenomenal piece of I've loved it. It just completely just won't turn on today. I have no idea why. So here you go. Thank you, Ross. Welcome here. Ross says right off the bat, the far right Moms for Liberty Penridge 5 have blocked any information about the teacher's contract from the other 4 who want to cooperate. Megan Bannis Clemens is horrible. Yeah, this is kind of one of the things we're seeing there is you got, not only do you have a split on the board, right, but the 5 people, right, the extremists on the board, these kind of Moms for Liberty 5, right? Well, I should say the Moms for Liberty 3 and their lapdogs, these 2 guys who basically don't say anything, just do whatever bidding that they're asked of them. They're little minions, I guess. But they will not share information about teachers' contract negotiations to other members of the board. Which is pretty crazy. So lots of stuff going on. So I'm glad to hear I'm coming through. I'm glad to hear that folks are listening today. It's a little bit weird right now. I still got my headphones on because I'm hoping that some of this stuff is going to get sorted out. But usually I'm able to monitor my sound levels too, and I can't do that this morning too as well. So who knows? Here we go. Well, this week we saw what's happened with the SAG-AFTRA. SAG-AFTRA, like last week, of course, SAG-AFTRA. The Actors Guild, right, and they joined the Writers Guild of America and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the AMPTP, with the Hollywood strikes. And we saw just a crazy. It's been a crazy kind of week turning back. I wanted to play you. This is the other thing I wanted to play you sound today because there was this phenomenal. There's been great sound coming out from some of the strikers, just talking about what the producers have been saying, what the other side has been saying. I mean, one guy basically, gave, I guess, representative of the producers of the studios and that kind of stuff. They, basically told someone in the media, basically, yeah, we're just going to wait them out until like October or so like that, until they're evicted from their apartments and they lose their homes because they can't pay their mortgages. Like, seriously, that's what they're talking about here. Right, and what's crazy about it is some of the big issues at stake here, right? Have to do with this kind of AI craze that everybody is on. Right, now that's not entirely what's going on, but this is it's crazy. So let me just give you some of the issues that are at stake, right? This is a great kind of overall of it. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it. This is from Justin Charity from The Ringer. It says, last week, the National Board of SAG-AFTRA, a labor union representing about 160 screen actors in Hollywood, went on strike against the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, AMPTP. On the picket line, SAG-AFTRA now joins WGA, which represents more than 20,000 writers in Hollywood and has been on strike since May 2nd. This, on both fronts, is a dispute largely concerned with the industry-wide upheavals in staffing, workflow, and compensation as everything shifts from broadcast syndication to web streaming. But the negotiations are also concerned, in a very timely and peculiar twist in contractor ways, with artificial intelligence. In May, the WGA released its stance on AI and scripts, and, quote, AI can't write or rewrite literary material, can't be used as source material and MBA-covered material, as in works produced under the collective bargaining agreements that build the unions and the studios. They can't be used to train AI, right? It kind of goes on for this. SAG-AFTRA found itself in similar position with the WGA. Basically the producers are saying that this groundbreaking AI proposal that they're putting forward would require actors to consent to create AI replicas for a guaranteed minimum payment. And the union, though, characterized the payment as a one-time transaction that grants studios access for the rest of eternity. The second version of the story, rather unflatteringly, evokes a recent episode of Black Mirror, right? So it goes on. But so basically, right, the idea, there several things have been going on here, right? And why this is so important is not so much just because it's Hollywood or it's entertainment. It's like, let's remember, it's like, I want to say it was like, just to give you an idea, most of the actors that are represented by SAG-AFTRA, right, and the writers that are represented by the WGA, right, most of these folks are not the big Hollywood stars, right? Yes, the big Hollywood stars, people like George Clooney, I don't know why I just was reading a thing that he said this morning. That's why he's coming to mind. But, these big stars are kind of, are members of the union and are supporting of the strike, as we've been seeing. Is like, you've seen floods of kind of like big time actors being showing up on the picket lines and supporting of the strike. Right, but the vast majority of people, right, that are members of the union, right, are barely scraping by. As a matter of fact, I forget the percentage of this, but there's like a significant percentage of the union does not get enough work to qualify for health insurance. Right, I mean, these are people that are, members of the union but are scraping by. Right, the big issue, of course, that's been slowly eating away at the industry has been the ways that compensation happens, right? You've probably already heard, if you listen to this program, you probably already heard a little bit about this stuff about residuals, right? That's the idea. You get paid for like reruns of your show or how many times the show is out there or is picked up, right? And that's one of the things that actors would count on in between like gigs, right? Because you're not working all the time as an actor, especially if you're kind of like the regular everyday actor and not just kind of the big Hollywood star, right? But that would be one way you get paid. Well, that's been kind of changed by the streaming services, right? The streaming services, Netflix, HBO, Amazon, so on. They flipped that all around and basically said, no, we're going to give you a higher upfront payment, one-time payment, but then we're going to get rid of all the rest of the payments, right? So okay, now imagine this. Just imagine this. Imagine you're an actor, right? You're kind of like a, you're a relatively unknown actor, and you'd agree to sign up to be a part of this, streaming series that's going to, I don't know, stream on Amazon or HBO, whatever it might be, right? And it's kind of a little quirky show, and it's the writers for it are kind of it's not being produced by any big names, stuff like this, but whatever. And then let's just say it takes off, right? This show takes off. Well, you've already been paid, right? So you get no benefit of like the show just going nuts. As a matter of fact, maybe you got paid less than you should have gotten paid because, that you didn't think it was going to be a big show, right? And then let's say that this is so popular, then it becomes this kind of like instant cult classic, right? That gets kind of like played and replayed and then gets syndicated elsewhere. You don't get nothing from all that stuff, right? So there's been a steady kind of erosion of the quality of life and the working conditions of actors. We've seen this everywhere from voice actors, right? We've had people on the show talking about the voice actors, the issues of the voice actors, and that aspect of the strike, as well as everyday actors, as kind of secondary actors or background actors, the people who work on the sets, people who build the sets, people who run the camera, all that kind of stuff. So it's impacting everybody, and it's been this slow chipping away at what goes on. There's also, what's emerged on this is that we see there's a real disparities in kind of in payment based upon where you live. So that's a secondary issue. But the crazy thing that started coming up is part of their proposals, right, about, the producers, right, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, right, the managers, basically. The way that what they want, this is according to the union, according to reports in the media, is they basically want to give you like a one-time payment. Like, say for example, you're like a background actor. So so say you're not like a main star in the show. Like, you might not even you might have just a couple lines or something like this in it, or maybe if you're just behind. But so imagine you got it like an office situation, right? So one of these kind of classic, I don't know, like say like a newspaper show, right? Some kind of about, or a journalism, something could happen in journalism, and they're at the office, right? And there's the two main characters that are there, and there's like a mail person, right? And that person is coming and kind of bringing the mail to everyone else, and maybe drops a package and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," or something like that, right? So just something, they're there, they're not kind of a main part of the scene, but absolutely part of the production, right? So that kind of person, and that's, again, it's work, right? That's what a lot of actors end up doing. And a lot of times that's the way they end up getting, getting into kind of some more steady work. Well, anyways, what the studios want to do, right, what the producers want to do, is they basically want to say, okay, we're going to give you a one-time payment, right, to come on and be that mail person and drop that package, but we're going to scan your image in, right, and we're going to have rights to that image to use in any way that we want in the future, right? And you're like, what? And so imagine this now. You have that same kind of like show that I'm talking about, that I'm making up, and then you have multiple people. They're all signing these contracts. They're all kind of getting their images scanned in here. Then guess what? The next time you're out, all you need is a green screen. And you can use AI to generate those images and do whatever the heck you want. And now you no longer have to pay actors. And all those actors are now out of work. Right? It's really messed up. It's super messed up. Right? So why this matters to the rest of us in many ways, right, is, yes, I mean, obviously, some of our shows are not going to be there. We want to blah, 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 right? Okay, yes, that's all true. Right. However, right, this is also what's been happening to all work. Right. And this strike, right, the SAG-AFTRA WGA strike, this strike is so critical, right, because it is going to help determine how AI is deployed in the workplace. Because I look at AI like this, like, okay, as a just, like a consumer of stuff, I think, it's pretty freaking cool, right? It's kind of fun. It's like, I've said this on the show before, is I've messed around with some AI stuff, like with Chat GPT and then Google's version of this, right? And I'll say like, okay, generate a Dungeons and Dragons character based upon this person. Right, and I'll get either like a celebrity. I did one actually for the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education, right? So I said, okay, generate a character, and it will sit there literally in seconds, start to generate the character, and I'll say, okay, put it in the kind of the official format of a character sheet, and it'll start doing that, right? And then if I want to tweak it a little bit, I say, okay, add like a dark secret to their backstory, right? And it'll go and it'll do that, right? Or another time I just said for kicks, I said, okay, generate a setting of a small seaside town that has where people have gone missing, right? Generate that town, and it'll kind of like describe this town and stuff, right? Now again, that's amazing, right? As a way of playing around with that and all this kind of stuff. There's also some really interesting stuff. Academics or teachers have been looking at it as obviously people are worried about plagiarism, but the bigger issue is like, well, how could this be a generative thing, right? So there's all these kind of possible uses of this AI stuff that is kind of really interesting at the hands-on level. However, once you start zooming out, there's lots and lots of problems happen, right? Like the companies, right, are looking at so much money is going into this thing, not to kind of just like to make the world a better place, but a ways of driving down labor costs, putting people out of work and automating kind of like knowledge work, creative work, right? If you spend any time on Instagram, you can see all the art, these kind of like art being posted that is AI generated art. right? We think about what that means for a working artist, right, who works in traditional media, like what that does, right? So what SAG-AFTRA is doing in this strike, especially when it comes to the AI stuff, right? But it also when it comes to our, our gig economy, is basically saying, okay, no, enough already. We're putting a wrench in the gears when it comes to the gig economy. It's gone too far. We can't take it anymore. We can't survive on this stuff. This is no life, and we want to live a decent life, right? And everybody should live a decent life. That's why we're going to fight this. And while we're at it, you got this new AI thing here, which you're going to look at to ramp up that gig economy, extract more profit, put more people out of work, right? We're going to use this as an opportunity to like stop it and rationalize the discussion of how AI is deployed in the workplace. Now, again, obviously, most of us are not covered by a SAG-AFTRA or WGA contract, right? But they set the tone. We can learn from them. Now they're going to generate language and discussions and terms and all this that we can all use in our own fight back. So, I mean, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Ross just saying it broke yesterday that Jordan Adams met with Penridge curriculum supervisors working on developing the social studies curriculum. Megan Bannis Clemens and Jordan Blomgren were in attendance. Joan Cullen, Ron Wirtz, Jonathan Russell, and Christine Baticki were never given notice about this meeting. And Megan Bannis Clemens is also sitting in on the principal and vice principal interviews. Well, Ross, I'll tell you this too as well. So I also have heard that there's Megan Bannis Clemens has been sitting in, and sometimes Jordan Blomgren, sitting on interviews even with teachers. So there you go. If anybody thinks that, again, I talked about this on the show on Monday. All right, if anybody thinks that, and last Friday, if anybody thinks that this board, the Penridge School Board, is not going to leave their mark and try to execute as much of the Jordan Adams playbook as possible, you're crazy. And one of them is basically make people's, I'm paraphrasing here, but make like teachers and administrators' lives miserable, those ones who want to push back, make it miserable, and ideally to force them out, and to get your people on the hiring committee so that you get kind of non-resistant people or people who are on board with your program hired. That's exactly what they're going to do. That is here. I mean, this is more evidence that this is true, but here you go. I'm going to move some of these things around a little bit here. This I just thought, again, we're starting to get close to the 2024 presidential election, right? And so we're going to start to see a lot more stuff like this. So we're trying to keep an eye on some of the things that will be influencing our kind of upcoming elections. And this is thanks to the folks at Right Wing Watch. This Christian nationalist political operative Chad Connelly is organizing secret meetings between GOP presidential candidates and right-wing pastors, right? So I'll read you just a little bit of this so you kind of get a sense of who these people are. And this is kind of like one of these public service announcements things. It's like, okay, here's another name that we need to kind of like put on our little big board of things that we need to be watching out for, right? And to recognize them when they happen. So Chad Connelly is a former faith outreach director for the Republican National Committee. He now runs a Christian nationalist voter mobilization organization called Faith Wins. For the past few election cycles, Connelly and his organization have been taking religious right pseudo-historian David Barton across the nation, delivering presentations in churches aimed at mobilizing conservative Christians to vote and get involved in politics. Right, so this immediately makes me want to find out more about this David Barton and what those talks are about. I'm sure people have been writing about it, and I haven't seen yet. So last week, Connelly appeared on fellow Christian nationalist Jason Rappert's program, where he reported that his Faith Wins organization has organized dozens of secret meetings between top Republican presidential candidates and right-wing pastors, giving pastors the opportunity to grill candidates on political issues and pray over them. Quote, one thing we're doing at Faith Wins is we're inviting multiple presidential candidates to meet with our pastors, unquote, Connelly said. Quote, we've done some 30 meetings with pastors on our team in Iowa, Nevada, New Hampshire, and South Carolina with, so far, I think, 7 different candidates, unquote. Connelly said that when he organizes these meetings, he tells the campaigns that, quote, we believe you ought to address the issues right-wing pastors care about. We believe you ought to have clarity when you address them. And by the way, your staff needs to hear it too, unquote. Quote, we sponsor the meetings, we invite the candidates, we tell them it's private. I handpick who comes, Connelly revealed. We say, no media. We're going to ask you questions, we're going to pray over you, and nothing is off limits. I know that my team has done that with everybody that's on the top tier, and we're reaching out to other candidates, and they're coming through those early primary states. We're making those meetings happen. And during that same interview, Connelly ranted about LGBTQ Pride Month, declaring that, quote, it's an affront, it's insulting, it's revolting, it's disgusting, it's vile, it's absolutely out of the pit of hell, unquote. I quote, I guess I'm glad I'm not God because I'd be pulling out my bag full of lightning and thunder, he said. Right? So that just gives you an idea. So you've got this Faith Wins guy, right, is working behind the scenes. Now, you've noticed, right, and I've talked to some of you kind of individually about this too, kind of off air, where we've shifted over the past couple of years, right? We've been digging in deeper on this Christian nationalist stuff, on the Moms for Liberty stuff, on what's happening in our school boards, in part because we think, I guess that's an imperial we here, right? I think this is a critical moment in our politics. And these Christian nationalists are really, they have more influence than any of us would like to expect, right? This is why we see reporting on Christian nationalism in the Bucks County Beacon. This is why there's more and more attention. Like, this is why, for example, I'm telling you is that Catherine Joyce was on this show a little over a month ago, and I got a couple months ago now, maybe. And talking about Moms for Liberty, but she was writing about this stuff. I think it was like 2006, 2008, something like this. She had a book out that was called Quiverful, right? She was reporting on and kind of doing this kind of like deep reporting on the rising of these kind of religious movements, right? And they have a disproportionate impact. Why do they have a disproportionate impact? It's not just because it's in the air. It's because of people like this Chad Connelly stuff. This is a well-funded operation, right? My next question, again, about that historian, about David Barton, who's been going on these tours, is also who's funding this organization. Because most of these fundings, most of these movements, right, that happen behind the scenes in private, in churches and things like this, they're well-funded operations, right? So we don't get to see them in the general public because they're happening outside of our view. And because of the way that media has been segmented, right, the fact that, these folks can have their own media circuit, right, and there's a lot of viewers that are watching it that are in that circuit and they hear nothing but. They change channels, they go to different sites, but they're all within that media universe. It's like the Marvel, it's like the Marvel universe except for right-wing media, right? Once you're inside of it, that everything is kind of self-referential, and that's by design, right? I mean, you go back to the Powell memo, right, from back in the 1970s. That was kind of what part of the agenda was. We've talked about it in this program, and we've seen Jenny Cohen doing great reporting on this, about this, the 7 mountain dominionism stuff, right? We need to go after the 7 mountains, and one of those mountains is education, and then there's the media, and then there's government, and there's, that's all their agenda. And again, it doesn't matter, right, what's truly, let's put it this way. We could call them hypocrites. We could call them, this is not what Christians do, whatever. It ultimately doesn't matter. These people are about power, and that's what they care about, right? It doesn't even matter if we believe or we know whether or not these people believe everything that come out of their mouths. What we do know is there are people that are motivated by them. And they have taken up action on this, right? That's what matters. So we track this stuff not because, we believe there's all this ideological purity out there, and no. It's because this is the stuff that has been grabbing onto people's fears, right? People's kind of like deep-seated racism and fear and insecurities, and turning it in a direction that is dangerous for democracy. It's dangerous for the majority of people in this country. It literally is the slow-moving playbook of fascism and demagoguery. And I'm sure there were people like in 1920s and so like this were saying that anybody who was pointing out this stuff at the time, looking at them, say you're being, oh yeah, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Not in Germany. Weimar Republic, right? So that's why we pay attention. Because the idea is that you never want to get to that point where it's all for real. So that's something to watch out about. One more thing here, and then I want to kind of do a couple of things that are connected. So we saw, the folks down in Montgomery County, we saw that there's a train that just derailed in Whitemarsh Township, right? And they think, at least the last reporting that I saw, there was, they think there may have been a sinkhole, right? That was because of all the rain coming through, right? Again, sinkholes are going to be more prominent, and that's going to have impacts on our infrastructure, right? Ask anybody who lives in Harrisburg what the impact of weather has been on their sinkhole stuff. Seriously. But this was a CSX train that kind of derailed, and it was a pretty bad derailment, although there was no explosions or fires, thank God. And initially they noticed that there was these white kind of silicone pellets that were spilled around there. And people didn't know what they were initially, but there were these white silicone pellets that were non-hazardous. Well, since then, reporting has come out now about what was in that train, what could have happened, right? And so here's an example. So this is from WHYY. And transportation experts and environmental advocates are calling for increased rail safety following Monday's trail derailment in Whitemarsh Township, Montgomery County. The CSX train traveling on Norfolk Southern tracks carried flammable liquid petroleum gas, or LPG, as well as toxic chemical commonly used as a dry cleaning agent. While no leaks of hazardous materials occurred, as far as we know, some are calling the accident a wake-up call. Quote, any kind of derailment like this where there's disaster potential chemicals like LPG should be taken as a warning sign that things need to get better, unquote, said Fred Miller, an independent railroad consultant with an expertise on hazardous materials. Right? It's a good article because it gets into what's been blocking up the rail safety stuff. But this is why we need, yes, rail safety, but infrastructure right across the board, right? This is why, if you looked at the original Build Back Better plan for the under Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden's initial plan would have taken care of a lot of this stuff, but of course Republicans fought him, and you had Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who refused to actually pass what we needed. And as a result, here you go. This is where we end up, right? Infrastructure further deteriorating, more trains thing. And plus what we saw with the railway strike, or the almost railway strike, one of the main issues there, right, was the fact that they're going with fewer and fewer personnel and longer trains. Why? So that these international kind of holding companies who've bought up the railroads, who could give a crap about rail, don't know anything about railways, just want to kind of like link more cars on each train, not pay any of the infrastructure upkeep of the tracks and everything like this, as a way of extracting more profit from that company before they ditch it and take their money and leave. That's been like, the story of the past 4 decades, right? Take the money and run. So, again, something to watch out for. And frankly, there's been people down there in Whitemarsh Township and Montgomery County, right next to that rail line, who have been warning about this kind of stuff for decades. Activists who have been actively pushing against this, right? It's the same folks that have been pointing out that they don't want the pipelines running through those communities, right? Oh, they don't want the pipelines at all, right? But cannot run through those communities for its potential hazards. Same issue, right? So, before we talk a little bit about a little bit more about Penridge, just some of the stuff that's going on there, maybe some things that you might be able to do. I'll let you kind of put out a kind of suggestion for some things that people might want to do when it comes to this. Because I think we're at the point where the public needs to really join in with the teachers and say that, look, we're behind them, right? At this point, there's nothing at this point. Let's be clear. There's nothing at this point that's saying that the teachers are definitely going to go on strike. We don't know that. We know that they are working without a contract. We know that we've lost many teachers in the district. Ross, you probably know the full number more than I do. But we got to find a way of doing this. Let me just check something real quick. Okay, so yeah, but we'll get there. We'll close that out. We'll close the show out with that for today. But what I wanted to get through first here is this new federal legislation that is being proposed by Representative Fitzgerald. Yeah, of course, just the same thing. Scott Fitzgerald of Wisconsin. Now, this goes to thanks to Amy. For this, Amy has been sending me some things this week. Great tips to pay attention to. I definitely would not have seen this if she did not send this. And this is, look, this is frequently what happens too as well. You just get awesome, people in the community. And like Amy Connect is one of them, right? She's like, tapped into a bunch of stuff. She's like, sends me stuff that goes here. She's been on the show quite a bit. It's all good. I'm getting off the track here. But anyways. So this is legislation from Scott Fitzgerald of Wisconsin. Now I'm just gonna. This is his press release. Okay. So before we talk about what this means, let's just look at this. I've been looking for commentary from the National Education Association, the NEA, or other reporting on it yet. Have not seen a whole lot about it yet, but flags should be going, or fireworks should be going off. So here, this is the press release. Congressman Scott Fitzgerald introduced the Student Act. The Student Act is the Stopping Teachers' Unions from Damaging Education Needs Today. So no holds barred, going right after teachers' union. Right? So this act is to reform the National Education Association federal charter and rededicate the organization to the pursuit of increased student learning and quality education in schools across America. That's all just rhetoric, right? The bill adds accountability and transparency provisions commonly found in other federal charters and to improve the NAA federal charter, right? To improve it, right? Basically means like no longer make it a teachers union, right? Take teachers out of the ability to control them, to be able to better be told what to do. Is really what that means. So, the act includes notify employees of their First Amendment right to refrain from membership, right? So first of all, nobody has to join a teachers union, right? If you are a teacher and you work under a contract, right, that is negotiated by a teachers union, doesn't mean you have to join the union. You don't, right? And they want to say receive clear and affirmative consent to membership and payment of associated dues, right? That's already happens. If anybody's ever been part of a union, you know this, right? This is already, it's already clear that you don't have to join it. Yes. Are people in the union going to ask you to become a member? Of course, right? Because they want to build a union, right? They want more people included. It's a democratic organization. And union members believe that the more people that participate in that discussion and in the organization, the stronger that is. So, of course. Right? Come on. It's like anything. That's just ridiculous. But okay, whatever. So they want to reinforce that. They want to put federal money behind letting everybody know. Even though federal law already leans heavily for the employer at this point, right? We know, we see it all the time, right? Anti-union activities happen nonstop, right? We already have an anti-union climate, right, in major sectors of this country. They just want to reinforce that, right? So they want to prohibit the NEA from engaging in political activities and lobbying. So now let's be clear. So the NEA, National Education Association, right, like any union, right, they're called association, but the act is a union, right, they have separate kind of organizations, right? And this is true in any organization, right? You have your union, your main organization, right, which is funded by members' dues, which is about making sure that your members are taken care of. You're updating your contracts, right? You're doing all this other kind of stuff, right? And then you have a staff, right? And sometimes your staff, right, say there's an issue that's coming up in the state legislature, right? And that's going to have an impact on teaching. Well, you'd have staff members, right? Staff members who go up and they would testify and they would kind of talk to legislators about why this is a bad thing for our schools, right? They want to ban that. But that's what they're calling lobbying. The political activities, right, to say, well, supporting candidates and so on, that's a completely separate part of a union, which people give voluntary contributions to that. So, for example, I'm part of a union, right? My union, by law, right, my union can't go out and support a particular candidate, right, by the union part. But they have a political action committee that can. Right, that political action committee, right, doesn't come from my dues. That comes from money I give to that political action committee voluntarily because I want my interest and the interest of other faculty at State System of Higher Education and I want those things to have some leverage. I want to support that. I want to support candidates who are going to protect my job, right? My control over my job, the quality of higher education, all that stuff. The same thing is with NEA. NEA, they have a political wing, right? And they basically want to support candidates, that can support teachers. And look, the NEA, right, if anything, this has been, if you look here in the PSEA in Pennsylvania, right, you've heard me be critical of that organization on this show because they're giving too much money to Republicans, for example, right? Like their support of Fitzpatrick has driving me batty, right? But whatever, right? That's a difference of opinion, right? In terms of what is. I just have a different idea about what a union is and what a union should be doing, right? Am I right? I think so, but they disagree, right? So we have a difference of opinion. We're all within a union community, though. Guess what? Everybody doesn't think exactly the same, right? Whatever. But they basically want to say, so the NEA, right, or PSEA or PEA, right, or PSEA in the state will kind of support different candidates, right, that are going to do good by education. They want to eliminate their ability to do that, right? They want to require the NEA to submit annual reports to Congress. And I'm not quite sure how this is different than the reports that they already issue, which is weird. I think they just want another hoop, right? So they have to go to Congress. So the federal government is going to have direct say over what happens in an organization, right? Remember, the Republicans want to, get the government out of your life. Well, guess what? This is them putting the government right in the center of between teachers and education. They want to mess around at the federal level, right, with what's happening in your schools. So. Now, I love this one. They want to put in, and this is where you get to the rubber hits the road. The way that the press release says it is like prohibiting, part of what they want to do in this act is prohibiting the NEA affiliates from harming students and families with school shuttering walkouts. In other words, they want to strip the right to strike from teachers' unions, in particular the NEA. Huh? They want to strip away the right to strike. This really is going back to the Lochner era. This is part of a repeal of the 20th century. The labor movement fought for the right to strike. And again, what do strikes mean? How do they happen? Right? This is, talk about, I hear all these complaints from either from students or from people in the communities like, kids that graduate high school, they don't know how to fill out a tax form. They don't know how to fill out a job application. Right? They don't know how to do. But you say, well, do they know how to fill a voter registration? Well, that's not the business of schools. That's civics, right? Get all upset when you don't know how to do your taxes. You all get all upset, And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, right? You don't know how to fill a job application? Okay, we can have a discussion about whether that's a school's job or not. I'm not opposed to that, but okay. But where's the labor education? Right? Where's that civic education in our right to strike? Our civic education defending our rights? Our civic education about standing up collectively and making change? Where's that? Where's the teaching about what the history of unions in this country is? About where the weekend came from, for example. Where the 8-hour day came from, for example. It didn't come from kings. It didn't come from billionaires. It didn't come from like the generosity of the rich. No, it came from hard-fought struggles by the labor movement, by people, by working people fighting for back. Why do teachers make a living wage now? It's because they fought for that. In the 1960s, there were not teachers' unions. They fought to be unionized because the conditions were so bad and they cared about education. This is an attempt to strip that away. Another thing, requiring NEA officers to be U.S. citizens. How about that? You can't be a head of an organization if you're not a citizen. Let's just say, for example, you have a teacher who's, active union member, gets married to another teacher, right, who's an active union member. That one teacher, one of the teachers, is not a citizen. No, let's say that they came to school, right, kind of in the States. They got their degree, right. They're here legally, right. They're here legally. All that kind of. There's nothing wrong with that. They're here legally and so on, right. So all the paperwork's up to date, all that kind of stuff. They are disqualified now because they're not a U.S. citizen from serving on the NEA. What the hell does that have to do with them doing a good job of the NEA? Then those two teachers say, for example, they decide, hey, we like each other. Let's get married. They get married, right? And so now that one person is eligible for a green card, right? So they put in their application. They're waiting for their green card. They get their green card. Now they have a green card. They have a green card, but they're still not eligible to serve the NEA. What the hell is that? And they want to get rid of a unique to NEA DC tax break. Now let's be clear. I'll have this one quote here, then I'll have a response to it. So this is a quote from Scott Fitzgerald. He says, quote, "Since receiving its federal charter, the NEA has strayed far from its original purpose, becoming little more than a political machine masking as an advocate for public education and students. The organization's massive political operation seems more interested in pushing a radical progressive agenda than advocating for students in schools." Hey, look, if you've been at all involved in the union movement, the NEA is not known as like the radical edge of the union movement. Just want to say, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that's kind of funny coming at it from my perspective. But anyways, what they're doing here, right, is they're saying like, okay, they're saying they want to. It's little more than a political machine, pretending to be, basically masking as an advocate for public education to students, as if these things are kind of somehow connected, right? We have a political party, the Republican Party, whose political agenda is to completely transform public higher education by privatizing it and so on. It is an overtly political act. On the other hand, you have an organization like the NEA that is a teachers union, that it's defending the kind of quality of the wages and benefits and working conditions of teachers, right? As the saying goes, teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions, right? Teachers are the experts on the education, so you want to have some protection there. So outside influences, for example, Republican Party politicians can't somehow threaten your job and prevent you doing something that you know is not in the best interest of kids. You have to have that kind of job security if you're going to do that job well. That's the whole idea, right? So when you advocate for public education, you're also advocating for teachers and their working conditions and students. Because if you have teachers who have poor working conditions or are paid like crap, that is going to affect the quality of education. Hands down. Shows it again and again. But what these people know is that teachers' unions and some public sector unions right now in this country are the last bastions of working class power they want to destroy. These folks have gone after labor unions in the private sector for 50 years. Well, more than that. I mean, originally they were just slaughtering workers who wanted a better life. History of the labor movement in this country is a bloody one. Workers had to people fought and died for things like the 8-hour day, for health insurance, for having some say in their workplace, for saying, you know what, we believe as the nature of being workers in this space, whatever the space is, we should have some say over this. And let's remember, a union is not in a position to dictate anything, right? The union is there to reach a contract with the employer. There's already a power differential there. The only power the union has, when at the end of the day, is the ability to say no. Is the ability to say, we will not accept these conditions and therefore we will not work. That's the heart of it. We could talk about persuasion. We could talk about the ways that, good ideas and all that. All that is important. The best thing that should happen is that you have two sides that get together and we're working on a contract and they come down there to negotiate in good faith. And there's a compromise that's reached in that contract. Yeah, that's how it happens. Right? Sometimes there's a little bit more kind of energy and support behind the teachers. Most of the time, it's behind the managers. That's where the power lies. Teachers, look, if you want to talk about who cares about the students the most, you're talking about teachers. Yes, and I'm sure I can hear the voices out there right now about, well, I had a teacher once. Yes. Guess what? Because they're people too, and not all people are good. I mean, look, Jordan Blomgren sits on the Penridge School Board. Horrible person. What she's doing to the Penridge School Board, awful. And she's a teacher. So, point proven. Right? Yes. It's just like people will say, like, you're never going to get rid of lazy people. You're right. But because you're never going to get rid of lazy people, does that mean that everybody else should suffer? Should be forced to work a chain gang? I mean, I don't know what the point is with that stuff. It's like, what kind of world do people live in when they think about everything abstractly? Of course, there's going to be bad apples. Of course, there's going to be some people who disagree with it. I mean, look, as someone who's been involved in a union for a long time, I've had significant, serious arguments, disagreements, fights with people in my union. Why? Because we're human beings who disagree about something. Right? But despite our disagreements, we believe that we are better off having those disagreements and having those discussions and working together ultimately to protect what we do. That's what a union is. And in spheres like mine, in education, right? I'm in higher education. What we're seeing like locally here is obviously K through 12. Right? I part of what we do, part of why we do what we do is because we care about students, whether you're in K through 12 or whether you're in higher education. Yes, I care about my research. Yes, I care about these ideas. But ultimately, what gets me into the classroom, why I chose, I've told the story 1,000 times. Like, I chose to come to a state university system. I had another job that was offered to me. I would have made more money. I would have had to teach. I would teach fewer classes, smaller classes. But I chose to come here for 3 reasons. Number 1, I was going to be teaching kids that reminded me a lot of the people that I grew up with. Right? I want to give back. Right? I could have taught at George Washington University. I could have been there teaching like ambassadors' kids and all that other kind of stuff, right? To having 2 classes, small classes. I could have been doing that. I had great friends there. I loved it there. But no, that's not how I wanted to dedicate my career. I want to teach with it. Number 2, I'd also worked as an adjunct before at George Washington University and at George Mason University, right? And I got a real good taste of contingency and abuse of part-time faculty. And I saw the degradation of what was happening in higher education firsthand. And I was part of a group of other people who were also involved that helped try to organize a union for part-time faculty. And so State System for Higher Education had a union. So I said, that's important. If I want to protect what I do, I want to be someplace where I have the protection of an organization that is working to defend my rights. That I'm not just going to be left out there on my own hanging. Because I've seen what that does elsewhere. And the third reason is just a little more simple. Just kind of, I thought we were in a position to do really cool stuff there. I was with a lot of other, when I interviewed and stuff, everyone I talked to talked about students. They talked about wanting to do good by students. That was the ethos. That shifted a little bit now because even though everyone puts a big student focus on things, the push is just like publish, research, publish, and not what actually happens in the classroom. But that's a different story. So that's it. We care. Every time I talk to a teacher and I hear them talk about my kid or other kids or what they're doing, it's just amazing, right? I mean, it's always reminded how important it is. And this guy, at the federal level, again, Scott Fitzgerald, he's a throwaway, right? Throw the name away, doesn't matter. It's part of this kind of like this section of the Republican Party that is doing this, or conservatives. And frankly, there's some Democrats out there who they might not stand out front and support this kind of stuff, but behind the scenes, they might be sitting there like, well, I don't care, teacher, unions, blah, 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 right? So that's it. The other thing I wanted to pair this with, again, this is also thanks to Amy Connect. She just sent this to me, and I was immediately oh, really? So there is, don't tell me. Oh, I thought I was going to get locked out of it for a second. I was like, oh, how about there? So this is just the kind of thing there. It just makes you just want to it makes you angry and want to give up at the same time. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So here's the thing, okay? So there's an organization that is called the Freedom Foundation. Okay? Now the Freedom Foundation is, they're a think tank, right? But they are, a right-wing think tank, right? They are an anti-union organization, right? They're, individual liberty, free enterprise, limited government. The classic thing, right? They sue a lot of people. They go after unions. That's what they do. They've got offices in Cincinnati, Ohio, Kennett Square, PA, Orange, California, Salem, Oregon, Olympia, Washington. Right? They are a 501c3 nonprofit, which means all those rich people that donate to this organization get tax breaks. It's funny. It's almost as if they were a political organization that was attempting to destroy teachers' unions on behalf of the Republican Party. That's interesting. And boy, I'm looking at a picture of them, the Meet the Team look, and boy, are they white. Good gender distribution, have to give that, right? A lot of women in there, but boy, are they white. Yeah. Okay, so this Freedom Foundation, again, they've been around for a while. These anti-union kind of, quasi-dark money group, right? I'll just do it. So they're having their first annual Teacher Freedom Summit, right? Again, this is July 20th. This was announced yesterday. And it's, think what I just said about Scott Fitzgerald, right? They have a little article on here, too, as well, that applauds Fitzgerald's proposal to destroy the NEA, right? And we're ahead of school boards meetings. We're ramping up all the kind of culture war stuff at the school board level. We've got Moms for Liberty doing the grassroots work here, and we've got a presidential election that is coming up in 2024. And this is the context in which these people introduce their stuff. Okay, so I'll read you a little bit from their announcement. America's public school system has a teachers union problem. Again, not hiding it. As reading and math scores hit their lowest level in decades, right? Don't worry about the pandemic. Major teachers unions like the NEA, here you go, and the American Federation of Teachers continue to ignore the interests of teachers, instead spending the majority of dues revenue on radical left-wing political agenda. Okay. Fully 81% of teachers believe the politicization of the classroom materials is a significant problem in the United States. Nonetheless, the NEA has doubled down on its disturbing education, providing teachers with guides encouraging transgender youth, pronouns, and white supremacy cultural resources. Right? And it goes on. So the crazy thing is, right, is that I don't necessarily... I could see where 81% of the teachers believe the politicization of the classroom materials is a problem. However, as we've seen in the Penridge School District, the politicization of the classroom materials means that the Christian nationalists are pushing their agenda in our classrooms. Right? There's a great use of numbers here. Let's go out and let's pull out these numbers so we can use it, okay? So this conference kicks off, and let's go through kind of a little bit where it was. Where was this thing held? Why am I not seeing? It was Colorado, I want to say, but okay. So this conference, Colorado, Denver, Colorado. This conference brought together 191 public school teachers from 26 states from Denver to Denver, Colorado. On Monday, the conference kicked off with a welcome reception and dinner featuring a virtual appearance from former Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, who gave teachers a word of encouragement despite the state of public education. Betsy DeVos, longtime privatizer of education, wants public funds to go to religious schools, right? That's who leads it off. Then there's Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters, his keynote speaker, followed giving attendees hope for public education reform by using his own state as an example where they decimated public education. On Tuesday, Mark Janus, the plaintiff in the 2018 Supreme Court case Janus versus AFSCME, kicked off a full day session with a word of encouragement based on his own experience fighting public sector unions in the Supreme Court. That was the case. The Janus case is basically stripped away, right, unions' ability right, to get back some of the labor that they've expended in defensive contracts. Right, we've already said, right, you do not have to belong to a union, right? You do not have to be a member of a union if your workplace is covered by a union contract, right? However, unions, public sector unions, would cover what's called, like, say, your fair share dues, right? Or an agency fee, they would call it. And the idea is that, look, if let's say you hate the union, right? You hate your union, or you hate the union, right? But the manager of wherever you work, the manager did something that is violating your rights under the contract, right? If you tell the union that, or if one of your, like, fellow coworkers who happens to be a member of the union lets the union know about that, the union will come to your aid. Even if you sit there the whole time saying, I hate the union, I hate the union, I hate the union, they're still obligated under law to defend your rights under that contract because you're working under that contract. All Janice did was basically saying, oh, you can be a freeloader, right? Because Janice said, well, these are political ideas that are different. Oh, wait. No, you can be a freeloader. That means you can get all the benefits of the contract. Because if you are an anti-union worker in a unionized shop, you are not a member of the union. Guess what? You still get their benefits. You still get the pay hikes. You still get all the defenses, the workplace protections, all that the union worked for. You get to benefit from their work, but you don't have to do anything to pay for it, to help offset the cost of doing that. Right? All that Janice did is say, guess what? You can be a freeloader. You don't have to pay that fair share. You don't have to pay that agency fee. You don't have to pay anything, but you get all the benefits. It's a slick move, right? Slick move, because what that does then is that decreases the resources available to for the union to do its work. Puts more of a strain, right? And guess who concluded this conference? Oh, I should say, well, let me just read through everything. So here, then the Hoover Institute fellow, right-wing think tank, Hoover Institute fellow Michael Hartney provided an analysis of union spending, while Corey DeAngelis gave teachers insight into the benefits of school choice. Several members of the Freedom Foundation gave educators resources for community engagement, legal resource. Again, all the training. This is where these people are training these kind of anti-union people how to do this stuff. But the day concluded with a word from Florida Commissioner Education Manny Diaz Jr. Right? Right? And then as the summit concluded on Wednesday, attendees heard from a panel of policy experts on how to stand up against woke, left-wing material that continues to infiltrate the American classroom. Throughout the event, each speaker allotted time for a question and answer session, allowing teachers to engage directly with education experts, blah, blah, blah. So let's do it. Like, I mean, we talked about this way back, right? I mean, we talked about there's this Freedom Foundation, and there's another conference that is happening, I can't remember where they're recruiting teachers to get there and to train anti-union folks how to destroy their unions. Right? We saw, for example, in Souderton School District here, right, there was an organization, I'm spacing the name of it right now, but that was like Souderton Teachers for Love or something like this. I don't know. But it was an anti-union organization. This is one of the strategies of the right. Right? What they want you to do is they want you to form a counter organization. This is like a strategy. It's called a strategy of decertification. Right? You want to find a counter organization, right, that claims to be supporting teachers, that claims to be about local control, that claims to be, and you use all this language and rhetoric about freedom and liberty and teachers' control and teachers' choice and stuff like that. But the ultimate agenda is to decertify the union. And at some point, you kind of like, you basically claim that the union no longer represents the majority of teachers there, and you file for a decertification vote. And if the union has not been doing, if union members have not been doing a good job of organizing and being a proactive union, right, where, people and teachers don't necessarily feel connected to their union, right, aren't part of their union, don't see the union as them, but they see the union as these kind of bureaucrats someplace, then guess what? They're not going to be organized to respond to this. They're going to be disengaged, most of the voters in this country. And then you could potentially decertify that union and claim that this other organization, which is funded by right-wing think tanks, quote-unquote, supports the teachers. Right? That's the undermine from within. Right? And then you have this stuff, which is going after, you have federal legislation that's happening. It's happening at the state level, of course, and it's happening at our school boards, and it's also happening by training teachers from within to be kind of like agents of anti-union activism. Like I said, there's bad apples in every bunch, right? And there's deeply anti-union teachers who are just ideologically driven because of their religious convictions or because they've been too far down the QAnon rabbit hole, whatever it might be. And they will ultimately be the ones that organizations like the Freedom Foundation will use to accomplish their agendas and destroy public education in this country. So, there you have it, everybody. There you have it. There you have it. Do I have anything else today? Oh, yeah. I want to talk about the Penridge situation. So, okay. So, the Penridge contract. Let's go to there. So, the Penridge contract is, the teachers still do not have a contract. Hold on. I went to the wrong thing. Okay. So, what I think we need to be doing right now is we need to get behind our teachers. Right, we need to know. I mean, look. There's been members of the community. I mean, Ross, who's on the show today, or who's listening on the show today. I know a lot of folks that kind of tuned into our show, that I've been at different events with and stuff. You're already doing incredible work, right? But I'm thinking, so one of the things that we can do, let me put it like that, like that's even for those folks who aren't out there knocking doors, who aren't out there been doing the organizing already, but it's a simple act of the community that people can do, is that we can kind of support the teachers. By start writing to the school board, right? And I understand that this is, writing to the school board. People said, well, that school board. Look, this is about community pressure, community, and showing where the community stands in relationship with our teachers, right? Every bit helps, right? You can write an email, right, directly to the Penridge School District School Board by PSD. Here, I'm just actually going to put this in the chat on here. Right, the email address for the Penridge School District School Board is PSD, Penridge School District, PSD School Board, all one word. PSD SCHOOLBOARD, PSD School Board, all one word, at penridge.org. All right. And again, this is from talking folks. What do we need to do? We need to put out some emails, folks. And first of all, let's run through some stuff. Like, here's the kind of thing that we need to be reminding the school board of to make sure that these teachers get a decent contract. Number one, the Penridge professional staff, they're the lowest paid in Bucks County. Lowest paid in Bucks County. We're just watching people leave the district. And if we want our kids and our community to have a decent school, right, we have to rectify that. Otherwise, they're going to get out of here as soon as they get a better paying job. Right? The future of the Penridge School District, right? It depends If you get a contract that's going to retain high quality staff, right? That means you're not going to have turnover every single year. And one of the ways you ensure that people aren't going to get a turnover a year is you pay them what they're worth. We have the Penridge School Board keeps on talking about how, like, we love our teachers. We love our... Well, put your money where your mouth is. Love only goes so far. Love is not... Yes, it's important to show respect and love. Absolutely. Not that the school board does that. However, the way that you basically keep people in a place is that you pay them well and that their working conditions are decent. If our teachers don't have competitive pay, competitive benefits, and competitive working conditions, with a school district that's literally 10 minutes away, well, guess what? Our students are going to suffer. Our student success and this school district, my kids, your kids, kids in our community, their success depends on being able to keep these high quality teachers in the district. Let the school board know that. Teachers are lowest paid in Bucks County. We need to keep high quality staff because it benefits our students. Put your money where your mouth is. Penridge has already lost, as I've already said, many professional staff to other school districts because of the lack of competitive pay. How do you keep consistency in your educational programs if you have a constant turnover? You need people with historical memory, right? The Penridge Education Association contract, the teacher's contract, has already expired 21 days ago. And yet, the teachers, are they out there on strike now? No. Why? Because they want a contract. They want a contract. What does that mean for going into there? So you want a contract before the new school year starts because you don't want to have any uncertainty going forward, right? You don't want to have people kind of still questioning what's going to happen. You don't want those conversations to be kind of like what dominates things around the school. No, you want teachers, students, staff, board, superintendent, everything. You want everybody to be focused on education. But teachers are like, well, okay, look, our conditions have been so degraded. Our staff has been so eroded. Not to mention the political context that is making things that much more difficult. That could like actually kind of cause problems. You don't want that to be a distraction for education come the fall. Get that contract done before the fall. Right? And I know what the school, what the teachers union, what the PEA is saying. Look, they need the school board to meet regularly with PEA negotiators and complete a solid, fair, and competitive contract. That has to be the top priority. You have to value your teachers and staff if you would care about your education. Look, if we invest in strong Penridge schools, right, if we do this as a community, it's going to yield improvements in students' future, their quality of life, their economic success, college, all that stuff. You invest in the people that make that happen. Education is about people. It's about relationships. And you want teachers, you want the most high-quality teachers out there. The way that you do that is you make sure that they got a good contract. Like I said, Penridge teachers and staff are the lowest paid in Bucks County. Now look, what I'm going to suggest to people in the sound of my voice here is that this is an opportunity just to kind of like separate some things out a little bit. Okay? You know as well as I do that the nonsense that is happening in the school boards, this ideological warfare, this cultural nonsense, the attack on LGBT students, right across the board. You know what I'm talking about. The hiring of Vermilion outside contract. You know, all of that is about an ideological agenda to destroy public education, right? Insert this kind of Christian nationalist type agenda that's going on here, right? But I also know that the vast majority of people that I've talked to said, look, we want our school boards to be boring again, right? Right? We want our school boards to be boring again. So there's two things that got to happen, right? The first is the political thing. The political thing is that we got to get rid of this school board, right? And that's been all the work that's happening at our communities, going out there and kind of like door knocking for kind of like for candidates that are going to turn things around, raising money for people who are going to turn things around, right? Showing up and voting for the school board candidates who are going to turn things around, getting rid of these ideological extremists from the school board. So that is taken off the table, right? 100%. That is the political agenda. Right, the political agenda is to get rid of those Red Wizards of Thay and their minions. Right? The teacher's contract, yes, it's connected to that. But the message we should be sending, I believe, is just one about support for our teachers. Because look, when this is all done, when we get this job done to getting rid of these extremists on our school board, we want our teachers to be in the best possible situation, right? We don't want them to have to kind of get caught up in all this. We want our teachers and our schools to be as solid as possible. And the best way we can do that is to make sure that they've got a good contract. That's why this kind of like email to the school board saying, look, they're the lowest paid in Bucks County. The future of like the entire school system, but most importantly, our current students and future students is going to be dependent on high quality teachers and having a consistency in the curriculum. Having people with an investment in the community. Teachers' conditions are students' learning conditions. If you degrade the teachers, if you degrade the staff, you degrade education, you degrade the students. Investing in those teachers, investing in the staff is going to yield improvements in students' lives. Right? Their quality of life, their economic success, the whole thing. So we can do two things at once here, right? We don't need to make our support of the teachers to be about the ideological warfare, right? It could be really focused. We need these teachers there. These teachers we need to support. And at the same time, we're to go knock on doors. We're going to raise money. We're going to support those candidates, and we're going to vote come the fall, right? I just think that, you know, so, you know, I mentioned this last week, right? There's the Penridge Community Alliance, right? So Penridge Community Alliance is basically the list of candidates that are running for school board that I'm going to support, that people probably listening to this thing support, but are going to turn the school district around, right? So look, head on over to their Facebook page. You want to check out who they are, right? Penridge Community Alliance. Just look up, go facebook.com/Penridge Community Alliance, right? If you have questions about these school board candidates, you can go there. The candidates are Carolyn Ciarino, Leah Foster Rash, Chris Kaufman, Bradley Merkel Gump, and Ron Wirtz. Right? Those are the 5 that we need on the board to turn the tide, to get rid of this ideological warfare that is happening at our school boards, right? So that our teachers can do what you want to do. But this, make no bones about it, this is a two-front war. We need to basically be saying we need to be supporting our teachers to ensure that they have a good contract, and that's where you can help out, right? Help out right now. Again, I'll give you that here. It's PSD School Board. That's PSD, like Penridge School District, PSD School Board at penridge.org, right? Shoot them off an email and let them know, who are you in the community, right? What's your investment in this? Do you have kids in the school district? right? Do you live in the area? Are you someone that cares about public education? Right? Let's get behind these folks. Penridge's professional staff are the lowest paid in Bucks County. Let them know. Look, we know we need, what's the message here? This is why I care. We need to make sure that we continue to have high quality staff, high quality teachers in our school district. How do we do that? We make sure that they have competitive pay, benefits, and working conditions. And to get them a contract before the school board or before the school year begins. And then we could say, like, why does this matter? Why, maybe they do have high quality. No. Penridge staff, Penridge teachers are paid the lowest in Bucks County. So we're losing teachers to other districts. In order to make sure that students succeed, we have to invest in our teachers. You invest in strong Penridge schools, you invest in strong teachers, you keep the consistency of the curriculum, and that's going to pay off hundreds-fold in our students' future, right? There's your goal. So use that as you will, right? But please, if you get a chance, write in support. Head on over to PSD School Board at, head on over. Write an email to psdschoolboard@penridge.org and support our teachers. Make sure they get a contract before the beginning of the school year. Make sure they're getting competitive pay, benefits, and working conditions so that they can kind of invest in what they do best, in the education of our community. All right, great. All right, everybody. I think that's where we're going to call it today. It may be a little weird on the way out because, again, my board got fried last night somehow. So I've had to kind of jury rig a couple things here to make the show. And for some reason, despite the fact that it worked perfectly fine before the show, I can't hear when the music is playing. So I'm just going to pretend that I know, and I'm going to try to play it out, and we'll see kind of what happens. Let me see if it goes here. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to pretend I know that the music is going to play, and here we go. Okay, everybody, this is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken, and I want to thank you for joining me today. I want to remind you can help support this show by heading on over to patreon.com/rcpress. You become a patron for as little as $5 a month. Looking forward to seeing you out there on the streets, and let's get it going, guys. Let's get it going. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney. I'm out of here. See ya!
Guess I'll fly.